Hello, my name's Duncan and welcome to my second video I'm recording today. And as all the trendy people are doing, this is my top 10 books that I read last year. Qualifying statement is the fact that they're probably not all the best books that were out there. I may have read some that might be better literary wise, but these are ones that I enjoyed or I found really, really interesting. So let's just leap straight in there. And I said, actually there is 11 here because my number one place that I actually had a draw. But number 10 is Alien 3, which is the unproduced script written by William Gibson. And it was turned into like a novel form by Pat Cadigan, who's like the queen of cyberpunk. And I just found it quite interesting. I read it, it's quite a short one, it's about 160 pages. If you've got Audible, they also did a dramatised version, which I think is free for Audible members to listen to, which I listened to it as well as read it. It doesn't concentrate, if you remember in the original Alien 3, which I actually quite like as a film. Most people don't, but I do. Especially the chasing around the prison. It's great. But basically Hicks and Newt, sorry, spoilers, get killed in the original ones, but they don't in this one. But this version of Alien 3, this script, you're basically following Hicks and Bishop. Bishop survives as well. But a lot of it did feel to me like Aliens in some ways. And that's why I think they probably didn't go with it as a script for the proper film. But it is quite interesting. It's more of an interesting curiosity than great literature. But if you like Alien and Aliens, it's well worth a read or even a listen. I said if you get to the... I'm not big on audiobooks, but that dramatisation is actually pretty good to worth listening to. So yeah, so that is my number 10 spot. And number 9, we have Fletch by Gregory MacDonald, which is a book I actually read on Kindle. I don't read huge amounts on Kindle. And if you know the film Fletch, the original one with Chevy Chase, this is the original book by Gregory MacDonald, who wrote several of them. And if you don't know, Fletcher is a reporter for a newspaper, and it's like he investigates this man who asks him to he's undercover investigating drugs for his newspaper, and a very rich man asks him to come and kill him to claim insurance, and it's the investigation that goes on from them. It is very close to the film. The film is actually very, very close to it, though he's not as much of a smart ass as Chevy Chase is in the film. But no, it was a fun read. I really quite enjoyed it. I probably might read some more of them at some point, but yeah, that was an ebook version, and I quite enjoyed that. My next one, number 8. I said I'm putting all the pictures up here, as you noticed, is Broken Lance by Frank Gruber. One of the few westerns I read. And the reason I enjoyed this was a book that I remembered reading as a child. We went on holiday on the south coast to New Milton, actually. And in the place we were staying, they had a bunch of books. And in there was this book called Broken Lance by Frank Gruber. And Frank Gruber was a really prolific writer. He wrote for a lot of the pulps. And I read the year before his history about him writing, and Broken Lance actually ended up being a film, which I can't remember what it was called, but I just really, really enjoyed it, and it brought back memories, and it was just a fun western. And I'm not normally into westerns, and I really enjoyed it. And look at the cover. The cover's really good as well. I might pick up some more, but I said he basically, in like the heyday, he wrote for Black Mask and magazines like that, all the pulps, and he was a really, really prolific writer. Slightly arrogant, but I think you had to be at the time to get anywhere. Okay, and we now got on to number 7. So number 7 is by David Duffy. It is Losing the Head of Philip K. Dick. And I did a video on this, which I will put a little link up there for you. And it is basically about some computer people who decide to build a AI robot of Philip K. Dick. And when one of them is carrying the head, which has got all the AI bits in it, on a plane in a bag, it gets lost in lost luggage. And this is about that, but it's more about how they put the AI together and the reasoning behind it. And it's just a really interesting read. And I suppose even for non-Philip K. Dick fans, it's quite interesting, all the computer stuff around it. So yeah, so that's Losing the Head of Philip K. Dick. Number 6, a dog book, Nigel, My Family and Other Dogs, which is Monty Don, who's a gardener in the UK. He's presents gardening programs, he's well known. His dog Nigel, who used to appear on this gardening show all the time, and sadly when he died, and actually for me, who we lost, as you know, my lab last year, Micah, and obviously the year before we lost our golden retriever, Harley. In some ways, it was a book, for me, it was quite cathartic because it went through all the dogs he's had in his life and the losses he's had of the dogs, but also what made them such individual dogs. And I just had a really good time reading this book. My wife brought me this for birthday or so ago, and I just got around to it, and I was really, really glad that I read it. So that's, yeah, Nigel, My Family and Other Dogs. Next book, number 5. This is The Anvil of the Ice by Michael Scott Rowan. This is a bit of a weird one. I read the book and I finished it and I didn't particularly like it. But over the rest of the year, I keep thinking about this book and keep going back to it. And I realise I did actually like it. Have you ever read a book like that? But it's The Anvil of Ice. Here's the actual book here. Put it up there. Great picture on the front by Ian Miller. And this was published in the, I don't know when it was published originally. Maybe it was 80s, or was it a bit later? In the fantasy boom of the 80s, was it? Yes, around the fantasy boom of the 80s, 86. You got a thing around the same time. You had Raymond Feist's Magician came out in the early 80s, and you had those books coming on. You had Thomas Covenant books by Stephen Donaldson, Porn and Prophecy, David Eddings books coming from. This one, I'm reading it now. I didn't read it at the time, whereas I read all those other ones at the time. It feels very different. It's written almost like a history. It's in a world that's covered in ice, and it follows a guy as he becomes a blacksmith. But blacksmiths hold a lot of power within this world. It's written like a history. It's very hard to describe because it's very, very different. The whole style of it's written, even the prose is quite, compared to what was around at the time, and even now, it feels quite, not brutal, the prose, but it's the first book of the Winter of the World. I've got the second book down there, which I might get onto this year. But the more I've thought about this book over the past year, the more I've decided it was a good read. And it's very weird that you get a book, I said that at the time you finish it, think, oh, I didn't like that. And then months later you start thinking about it and think, no, actually I did. Because it did something different. It did something different within fantasy books. And I'm going to have to do a proper video on this because I haven't heard many other people talk about this book. And people who love this book seem to really, really love this book and the series. There is the first 3, which is a trilogy, and then there's 3 books to follow it, but the first 3 are meant to be the best ones. So I've only read the first one so far. I'm going to get onto the second one. I probably might read it in part of this Read What You Own, get onto the second one. And I won't be able to pick up the third one until I'm allowed to buy books again. But yeah, Winter on the World is the series, and Anvil of Ice is the first book. So, on to the next one. Number 4. Book I've reread many of times, Death World. I read all 3 Death World books, but I read it in an omnibus, so let's count that as one book. Harry Harrison, one of my favourite all-time authors. If you get to read the Death World books, it's about a planet that basically is trying to kill everybody. It's trying to fight back. That's why it's called Death World. And it's about this guy who's a gambler who's taken there to help them in a weird way. He ends up, some convoluted method, he ends up escaping, and they want to hire him. For me, the first book is the first book best or the second one? The first 2 are the best. The third one's okay. The first 2 are really good. And the third one's not the best, but it's still well worth reading. And as with all Harry Harrison stuff, it's a real fun reading, and there'll be a sprinkling of Esperanto, because people always speak Esperanto in Harry Harrison books. So yeah, so that was number 4. And number 3 is, I have to finish Philip K. Dick. I read Philip K. Dick do Androids Between Electric Sheep last January, and I'm just about to reread it again because I'm trying to do a video on that comparing to the film. And last year I didn't get around to it in the end, so I've got to reread it. But I read 2 or 3 Philip K. Dicks this year, and I said I've read most of his stuff. I did read one that I'd not read before, I think, or I'd forgotten about. The Penultimate Truth, that was it. I'd read it so long ago I couldn't really remember about it. But Do Androids, Dream Electric Sheep, I really, really like. I love all the layers with it, and it is quite different to the film if you really look at it. They're sort of polar opposites in some ways, because the replicants are totally motionless, and there's all the quasi-religious stuff in the background of it. But yeah, it's probably one of my favourite Philip K. Dick books. I remember reading it originally when it saw the film at cinema when it was released, and then I went and bought Philip K. Dick Do Androids. I'd never read any of his stuff before, and I was hooked. Okay, and number 2, Tales of the Dying Earth. I reread Jack Vance's Tales of the Dying Earth books. Got the anthology, the Fantasy Masterworks books. I still like the first part, probably is my favourite bit. But it's everything that Dying Earth should be. You know, all the sun's fading, and you've got mysticism around, and you feel the earth dying, and it's all about the environment. Good Dying Earth books, it's all about the environment. You know, if you look at authors like Gene Wolfe, who obviously cites France as an influence, his book's all about the environment as well. I think Dying Earth books, I prefer The Book of New Sun by Gene Wolfe, but you can't beat Jack Vance's sort of world building. I hate the term world building, but that's what it is, and it's so well done. And then we go to number 1, which is 2 books, and if you've been watching videos of mine this year, you probably won't be surprised. First one is Year of the Quiet Sun, Tucker Wilson. I said I did a video on that. I will put a link up there. It is the ultimate sort of creeping apocalypse. Totally underrated. It won the Nebula Hugo, and everybody seems to have forgotten about it. And you should all go and read it because it's stunning. And the second one, number 1, because I couldn't split them, is Ray Bradbury, Now and Forever, which has got 2 novellas in it. Somewhere a Band is Playing. For some reason I always get that wrong, and that's why I keep forgetting, which is the story of a town that's sort of lost in time and a mind discovering him. And it's just beautifully, as with all Bradbury, all beautifully written. And then you've got Leviathan 99, which is a retelling of Moby Dick in space, which is just stunning as well. And The Band Played, though, that's my favourite. So yeah, so that is my top 10 for the year of 2023 of what I enjoyed reading. There's many others that could have gone on there, and if you ask me tomorrow, my list will probably change. I'm going to do another video probably early next week of my favourite short stories of the year, and hopefully I'll be a bit better explaining them, because I've been out of the mood of making videos. My explanations, I think, are getting poor, but who knows? Maybe when I look at this in the edit, it'll look a little better. Anyway, I will speak to you all very soon, and thank you all for watching.